Welcome back to the Grouch and the Brainstorm. I'm Mike, and I'm joined today with Jill.
Hey, guys.
Matt.
Hey, Mike, I didn't put my phone on airplane mode.
I think it'll be okay.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, Jill's going to be able to read your text messages, but besides
I don't care.
What's funny is that I can look at Matt, and his face is like twice, right here and then right there.
Yeah.
You're seeing double.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll
Not
be
that kind.
I think we'll be okay, man.
I just thought about that, Mike, as we were rolling the music.
But
so.
I'm going to pan to me,
Okay.
and I want you to move your camera where you're in the middle of the screen. Can you
That
do
would help. That would
You
help.
have to move your camera to where there. Look at you.
Oh,
Look
man,
at you.
just look at you.
Professional.
There you go, guys. There is Matt. Now he's in the middle
Phone
of
Front
ain't
and
right.
center.
That Matt can't get right. That's his
Well,
nickname.
that's-
No,
So-
I'm not
one of them
listening.
days.
I'm not listening to
We
that.
have had complaints about me and Matt's mics not being loud enough. So,
But mine has been just fine.
yeah, yours is just fine. So either A, Jill's a big mouth, or B, the gain wasn't set properly, and so I have adjusted the gain to whatever Jill's was. So now all three of our mics should be at the same level, and I'm going to take this episode and I'm going to run it through an editor. And after I do that, I'm going to make sure that the volume is where it's supposed to be. Because I
Okay.
normally just take it straight from here to the screen because I don't do video. But I can do the audio to where
It'll
we're
check
all,
it.
Yeah, to where we're all on the same page.
Well, good.
Yeah. So there's the Grouch and the Brainstorm, guys. This is episode 111.
111.
111. 111.
Triple ones. Yep.
Triple one. Snake eyes plus one.
That's when they know you're cheating. When you throw 3 dice in there. You're getting stabbed.
I don't even know where I came up with that, man.
I don't know, but that's good.
Yeah, sometimes I just try to figure myself out, you know.
I understand.
What y'all been up to? Anything going on the past week besides this? I drove through, man, it's coming over here is almost like a journey, you know. Not,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, not to mention the fact I do listen to Journey most of the way over here.
Jeez.
But
The whole
yeah.
way?
Well, yeah, pretty much, you know. I can't get enough of Steve Perry, man. The dude can
Steve Perry,
sing,
baby.
You know, I mean, no matter
He
what
can.
it is. Yeah.
He can.
Dude had like, he there's 2 people out there. There's probably about 20, right? But Steve Perry and Peter Cetera have the most amazing voices. Peter Cetera, you know who that is?
Yes, I have
Sounds
a bunch of
familiar.
his on mine.
Well, I saw the posters downstairs on your wall.
Dude, shut up.
And yeah, Peter Cetera.
No.
Who was he? Who was he
No,
with?
I do
He
not
was
find
with
him attractive.
Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
But
Okay.
the bulk of his career, I think the bulk was spent just solo. You know, he did that deal for Karate Kid 1 or 2, The Glory of Love, and then, you know, and then he covers a lot of his old band stuff,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I think him and the guys may get along, so he doesn't have trouble doing it. I actually went and seen him at one of the casinos here back about 15 years. Nah, but I was sober, so it had to be in the past 13 years, 14
Okay.
years. So he, how we got to talking about him. Steve Perry I've never seen, but I really am impressed with Steve.
There's an old obscure movie called Basketball.
I know. I know. That's
You know the Steve Perry joke where
No, but-
they're shooting free throws and they try to make the guy miss, and so Steve Perry is what they say to like get in the dude's mind.
Oh, really?
The whole movie's the joke of. That's why I said when you said that I said Steve Perry.
Trey Parker and Matt
Yes.
Stone, is it?
Yes.
The two creators of South Park made
Yes.
this movie called
okay.
Basketball. I think it's in the 90s. Or
Really,
early
it's only
2000s.
funny if you smoke a lot of marijuana, which I was doing back then.
no,
so
I
Hey, and we don't suggest.
yeah, we don't suggest.
If you can.
But
I mean,
that's all
you know,
I
if you're-
remember
if you're
from the
one of us,
movie
of
was
course.
Steve Perry.
When you get to be our age, it may be funny. You know, I mean, I don't know, just without the weed, but good movie. If I mean, I say that it's up there with the the
Gone with the Wind and
Yeah.
it's classic.
Yeah, A Tale of Two Cities or something.
Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes
Is that
of-
even a movie?
But coming over here, I think it is, or a good book. Coming over here was a journey, man. Because I mean, like it was raining just to the point of where people have to turn their blinkers on, or
Really?
what do they call it? The emergency lights. You have to turn your emergency. Yes, it was absolutely
Hazards.
horrible driving over here. I mean, from the minute I got out of DFW till the minute I got to Marshall, Texas, and it was just just one of those things. No
Yeah.
wrecks, thank goodness. So,
Yeah.
but anything been going on besides that?
Man, it
Nothing.
is Nothing wild. It's just springtime and grass is growing.
It is springtime, and I didn't have enough time to load my picture, but I was going to load a picture. I caught, you can see it on my Instagram if you want to, but I caught this beautiful bass the other day. And this is how, this is, you guys, I don't see y'all for another 7 days, right? Or 6 days or whatever it is. We don't really talk a whole lot other than the group text and then what we do here. And I catch this fish, and the first people I sent a picture of it to was you two guys.
Yeah, and then there was a
I was proud
size
of
joke
you.
in the
Yeah.
It just went from there.
Yeah.
What would you do with it? Was this a catch and release?
All my fish are catch and release.
Oh.
I don't eat fish.
Well, I know you don't.
And I enjoy catching them, and it was just a man. It was a good fish. So me and my son got to spend. I don't know. We've been fishing twice in the past week. He usually catches them all, and I just work on the boat and piddle around.
Is
I
that
don't
Joe
expect
Pool? Is
anything.
it pretty deep?
Well, I don't know, man. It ain't like you'd think Lake Pontchartrain's deep.
No,
but
it's
I think
not
the
at all.
deepest point is 14 feet.
Yeah.
But
You know,
I think you can drown in
The North Shore,
or some shit
North
like
Shore.
that.
We used to get on. You could just get out in the water and start walking. And there used to be an old shack sticking up. It looked like a kid's fort. It was like 200 yards out there. And you think, man, it's way out in the ocean, and it'd be like waist deep when you got out there. And
Well,
you're
they
already
said-
200 yards out. You know,
A couple folks that live down there, the AA people that I know, have been there their whole lives. And I want to say the 80s, it may have been the 70s, there was a plane crash. And half the plane was sticking out for a long time.
Wait, where's this?
Lake
Lake
Pontchartrain.
Pontchartrain.
Oh,
Yeah, huge lake, but not very deep. And
Not
there's
deep.
a lot of wreaths out there. They're man-made, obviously. And
It's
I don't
not a
mean
coral
like,
reef.
not like a Christmas wreath. I mean, there's some kind of something underwater, and that's where the fish hang out. You can get in there and fish around them and stuff, but they're not very. It's not a very deep lake as opposed to some of the other lakes. I don't know about Joe Pool. I think I read the deepest spot is 20 feet because I have done the research on this, but it's one of those things I still can't figure out because when you don't have a boat, you get on the bank and you throw out as far as you can and fish back in, and when you do have a boat, you throw to the bank and fish back to you, and I don't understand the concept there, and
The grass is always greener. That's the concept of fishing.
And the guy here we are. We pay for a slip, right, to keep the boat in. We pay for the boat, insurance for the boat, gas for the boat. The whole 9 yards. And then there's guys that hang out at the marina and catch
'em right there with your
10-pounders right
boats.
off the dock. And so some kid, he couldn't have been no more than 16 or 17 when me and Wyatt were getting ready to leave the other day. He pulled a huge. It was 9. It was a 9-pounder.
Wow.
And I was joking with Wyatt. I was like, that's probably the marina mascot. The guy just caught the marina mascot.
Their pet.
And the fish he used to catch it is the size of the fish we catch. I mean, it was just, he was using an artificial bait, but,
Yeah.
it looked like a fish that had been broken in half, I guess, so it could do the whole
Swim bait.
woo thing. Yeah. It was big, though, man. So good stuff. Fishing and motorcycle riding, this is the time of year you kind of miss them, so you want to jump back on them and do it.
I'm glad you're doing it.
Well, man, I do it when I can.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just one of them things. You gotta, time is of the something. I don't know what they say, stitching time or some crap. I don't know what that means. I don't even, do you know, have you ever heard, like 2 shakes of a lamb's tail?
Yes.
What the hell does that mean?
Okay, so have you ever seen a lamb's tail?
No.
Goes pretty quickly.
Oh, okay. So it's like a nub.
Yeah, it's like,
So, yeah, okay. I was thinking about that on the way over here.
this
and I
means
was
like it's going to,
what the hell does 2 shakes of a lamb's tail? I mean,
it means it's going to happen quickly.
yeah, no, I get it now.
Oh.
But, I mean, who came up with that unit of measure?
I just like Mike goes, no, I don't hang out around lambs.
Yeah, 2 shakes of a goat's tail. Y'all ever seen that movie, The Animal, with Rob Schneider?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, you might want to see that before we talk
No.
about it. Goat's tails on this thing. So, Jill, have you been up to anything we need to know about?
Really, I mean, like, again, work. I planted my garden, planted a bunch bunch of vegetables and only got like half of it filled. So probably going to plant a bunch more. Yeah, I can't, other than that, just not much else. Not much else. I've been kind of in a funk for the past couple of weeks, which is just fine, and that's
We
normal.
were talking about that whenever you.
Yeah. I mean, I like sharing this kind of stuff because I'm not superhuman, and this is life. Sometimes we are down, sometimes we're doing great, and this happens to be a down point. I'm in menopause, and so it just
forgot the theme music.
It's the Jaws theme, dude.
it really should be. I'm all of a sudden
I've
having
heard things.
severe anxiety, and it's just kind of popped up pretty badly, and some joint pain and lack of sleep and sadness, and so yeah, it's been a ball full of
Fun.
just so much fun.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, do we have any announcements?
Like, with that being said, let's go.
No, I'm just thinking.
Me too.
I don't think we have any announcements. No birthdays, no nothing. Damn it.
I think Gina H had one the other night. It was
Yeah,
a bunch of years.
think
We
we
may have
talked
talked
about
about
that.
that.
We did.
I
We talked
happened to
about
be there for that one.
So
Bill and Gina are
we can
just
still-
awesome.
we can still play the music.
Come on.
That's right. Our announcement is no announcements.
Yeah.
week.
That's right.
So,
That's our announcement.
no mail, nothing in the mailbag, no voicemail.
No, nothing, just Jill's funk.
Jill's funk.
Jill's got menopause and I don't. That's the announcement.
That's
so.
that's how you do it, man.
I managed to dodge it.
I don't even think the steps work on menopause. I mean, they may work on everybody around you.
I think it works on everything but that, from what I hear. So
Let me tell you something. It has not been fun.
I can imagine.
It just,
dude, I'm so glad I was born a dude. You know
But
what
you
I'm
know,
saying?
y'all have
just-
no idea.
if you just, that menopause will be gone. 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
No, I don't think it's I want to whoop your ass. I'm just kidding.
Had to use it in a sentence.
I wish it was 2 shakes of a lamb tail, but it's just kind of been.
I don't understand why I'm driving down the road. The rain is so bad that you cannot see, and people have their flashers on. Some people are pulling over under overpasses, and I'm sitting here thinking of old cliches that I can't figure out. Right? I don't like. I'm just,
I do.
Like, where does
We've done this before. We have
stitching
Googled many
time
of.
saves 9? What saves 9? What?
I don't even know what that. I've never. What is that?
I do. I get in like I spent a lot of time on a mower and was on a big tractor all day today, and man, my mind will just wander on stuff just like that. It's like a Seinfeld episode.
On a positive note, I'm not thinking about anything that's bad. You know, I could be thinking, man, I hope I don't go to jail. I hope I don't have to worry about that divorce.
You
I
could be
hope I don't,
thinking about a million other
and,
things.
And
but-
I'm trying to figure out what a stitch in time means. Stitch in time saves 9.
What does this save? Where does saves
is a
9
lamb
come
the
from?
same thing as a sheep?
And there's and yeah. How come
It's
we
a
don't
baby
have?
sheep.
How come they don't call it Lamburger? And
Oh my
instead
God.
of shop.
Y'all are killing my brain.
Just these are the things that go through your head, and then I talked to my daughter, and my grandson's going to go back in the training unit tomorrow and get more, so he can get back. Both her kids, one of them's got I don't know, hoof and fart disease or something, where
Hand and foot.
there you go, hand and foot. And so she can't go to daycare, and she just started daycare last week. So she's got to have her over in Dallas. Well, so she can't go see the baby in ICU because the daughter's had that, whatever that was. And so, it's just kids, man. When you
Yeah.
have kids,
They get everything, bro.
they do. And I think that's how the human body's supposed to work. I think you're supposed to get everything, and then, so who knows, man? And then for what I don't know. So, but she calls me and tells me that. So then I'm like, okay, well, that's one thing I don't have to think about right there,
Mm-hmm.
And then so, but anyway, Jill, you had a topic.
I do have a topic.
Let's hear it.
And, I mentioned this quite a bit on the podcast. And It's called a cognitive distortion, and we haven't really elaborated on that because there are many different types of them. So if you break down the word cognitive, it stems from the word cognition, which means thought. A distortion is something that's distorted, and so if you take that and a distorted thought, well, it's defined as a false and irrational thought. And a lot of people in recovery call it like stinking thinking. It's just like bullshit thinking errors is what it is. But what they do is get us into a lot of trouble because we use them in our addiction, and we'll use them outside of just use them, period. And this isn't limited to just people like us. We all do it. But what they do is set us up for failure. And when I became familiar with these, through work and through my education, I realized that this was my whole vocabulary, back in the day. And I had to go through a lot of CBT. And when I say CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, because this is how you get rid of these thoughts, is through, dissecting them, challenging them and reframing and creating new thoughts. But a lot of these thoughts are just, you believe it as your truth. And that's what's so scary about it, because this is the deal. It's not the truth. And so I really wanted to talk about this because I hear it on a daily basis. Everybody does. And some of these we've been doing since we were toddlers. We hear this from our parents. We hear this from our peers. We hear them all over the place. And we all do it.
Let's go to Google.
Hey, Google.
Quick. I want to read Google, see what it says.
Yeah, please do.
So the Google definition of cognitive distortions are irrational or inaccurate thought patterns that can lead to negative emotions and behaviors.
Absolutely.
They are often habitual and can contribute to various mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Identifying and addressing these distortion thought patterns is a key part of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, as you
Absolutely.
said. So, some examples.
Well, I was going to go through those.
Well, you can go through
Yeah. So let's talk about different examples, and we can all probably be like guilty.
All or nothing thinking.
So I was going to go there. That was my first one. And so, I know as alcoholics, drug addicts, we were just so matter of fact, like either black and white. There is no gray. There is no middle area with a lot of us. And so this all or nothing thinking is, of course, those two polar opposites. Always and never. Mm-hmm. And I can think of a million times, I thought back in my addiction, no one can help me. I'm always going to be this way. I'm never going to be happy. I'm never going to do this. And, just like that's complete BS. Of course, I thought that, and I was able to break those down. And I remember doing it when I was in therapy, because there was, I got into grad school in sobriety, and I didn't think I'd be able to accomplish it, and I was telling myself I was stupid, which labeling is another cognitive distortion. Okay. And I was freaked out. I mean, they told me I couldn't make under a C. I could make like 2 C's and that was it. And, or something like that. It was pretty tough, but, and he's like, but are you? And I'm like, he started challenging me on that. And he's like, well, you mean, how did you do in school? And I was like, well, later on I did pretty poor. He's talking about like grade school and stuff like that. I started making like a lot of F's in high school. And he's like, but did you try? What happened? I was like, I gave up. I started using drugs and alcohol in high school, and I just gave up. He goes, okay, but when you did study, yeah, I did really well. And it's just breaking those down and actually looking at the fact of it. The fact of it is that I'm not stupid. I ended up graduating with an A average, almost 100%. But it's crazy. The lies that we tell ourselves, and you believe it. I absolutely believed it. And that professor gave me a chance and said, you may not have the greatest GRE and, GED scores, but I'm going to let you in on provisional status because I'm a recovering alcoholic and I believe in you. And for the first time since ever, I made all A's and B's. I never did that in elementary school. I always had a C in conduct.
Are those Gucci glasses?
Maybe.
Okay. All or nothing, baby. Just,
You have no room to talk.
I just asked. Simple.
But the all or nothing. I mean, think of that. What is something you've always, if you've said something is either always or never?
That's everything I pretty much do.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it 100%.
Yeah. Well, and
know.
again, there's that all or nothing kind of stuff. I mean, we may say things like, especially if we get in a relationship, you always are late, or you never take the trash out, and it's just things like that.
I'm gonna tell you this though.
What's that?
At work, okay. When it comes to me and my job, I'll get pissed off at something. I don't know what it is, and I'll work 7 days a week, 15 hours a day. You know what I mean? I'll be like, okay, I tried to take a day off, but somebody was calling me, asking me for this or asking me for that. So to heck with that, I'm just going to not take. So then you don't take care of yourself.
Well, I want to get behind. This is the thought, though. It's not necessary. It's not the action. It's the thought behind it. If I tell myself I'm stupid, how that's going to make me feel. I could tell you what it made me feel. It made me feel like shit. It made me not try anymore because I felt like I couldn't do things, which led me to feel that I couldn't get good jobs. I couldn't make good money. And it made me feel hopeless. So that's what happened. I would like spin out with these thoughts. Another one is like, of course, like overgeneralizations. People do this quite a bit as well. An overgeneralization is when that's the kind of the always and the never, but it's putting one person into a entire group.
Yeah.
Or you can do that with a population or whatever.
I see that a lot in politics.
Yeah. It's rather divisive in that sense. And those are things that, a lot of people, I mean, I work in a prison and all cops are, well, just leave it to your imagination. You may have said it back in your diction or whatever, but what people will say is all cops are pigs.
No, I've always liked cops.
What was that head?
They're great.
Well, and so do you see what I'm saying? And so we group people together, which is again just kind of BS because not all cops are. There are cops that, I mean, I haven't met them, but
overgeneralization, and I get it.
Yeah,
everybody, because of one negative action, everybody falls into a whatever. I can't think of the word. A category.
Yeah,
category.
absolutely. And I mean, people say that about drug addicts.
Sure.
And
and we assume whenever we say drug addict that every drug addict is like a methamphetamine addict or cocaine addict, or it may not be that particular drug we're thinking of. There's a lot of addictive drugs, and there are pain meds that are almost give you 100% guarantee of getting addicted.
Sure.
I mean, and so we overgeneralize and call them a drug addict. We think they're this.
Well, yeah, all kinds of things.
I go to Alcoholics Anonymous out of rehab, and I walk into an AA room, and I think, man, I'm gonna be in here with a bunch of homeless dudes that all been under the bridge. Well, I was pretty much one myself at that point, but I was like, that's what that's what I had in my head, and I go in there, and there's business people, there's all these things, and I'm like, oh, these are just like everybody. Like there's all facets of life and every demographic or whatever you want to call it. And so you can't do that with anything.
Yeah.
So
and I hear this a lot because these are things that I teach in my psychoeducation classes to help the guys that I work with, and there's a lot of. I mean, a lot of them go on about women. A lot of say that all women are crazy or bitches or what. Did you better shut your mouth?
You said it, I didn't, Jill.
Don't you do that shit?
No,
to
they're
me.
not.
Thank you, Mike, for clearing that up.
But you see what I'm saying? And the same thing with women. They say, hey, all men are cheaters. They're dogs, whatever. And so,
No, they're not.
but this is important, because these thoughts create our reality is what they do.
Before you go to the next one, though, I wanted to ask you this.
Okay.
CBT.
Yeah.
What does it consist of?
It's just reframing your thoughts. It's taking your thought and it's breaking it down. It's identifying it, then examining it.
Do they give you an example thought or some kind of something they got to go have some kind of
So just like I
standard?
just said a second ago, I am stupid.
I got you. Okay.
And he was like, but are you? Mm-hmm. And I remember crying because in my head I thought that, but I also got to realize that I'd stopped trying, a long, long time ago. And you ask yourself, like, is this reasonable? Because I don't know about you guys, but I can be incredibly hard on myself.
Oh yeah.
And think unreasonably when it comes to things like that.
I'm
and
100% in agreement.
I had to learn how to be compassionate, to myself. And, you just ask yourself, is this true?
Funny how we're reasonable and gracious with other people and their things, and then, but then I'll just killing myself over.
We do
stuff.
cut people a lot of slack and don't
Sure.
cut ourselves any.
You're right. We don't give ourselves enough grace. And
Is that a cognitive distortion?
yeah, sure. Yeah. Another one is jumping to conclusions. This is your mind reading, your fortune telling, and I've done this before plenty of times.
To me, that if you now, I'm going to stop just for a second.
Yeah.
But if you're doing that to a person, it sounds to me a lot like gaslighting.
What?
Or expectations.
Jumping to conclusions, trying to make them think what you think.
Well, no, not necessarily. So this is stuff that goes on in your head, and this is
Again, not actions. These are thoughts. I get it.
right. And what you think is not necessarily the truth. I talked to my guys, that are incarcerated, and a lot of them call home, and no one answers. They don't love me anymore. My wife's cheating, and it's just like everything, they spiral out. And I'm like, how many kids do you have? And like, how many jobs is she having to work since you are here? Okay. Do you think she's it all had a breather? And I have to like talk them out of that. And they're like, you're right. I was like, they're busy. This does not mean they don't love you. But, we may do this if, we can be in a crowded room and wave at someone. They don't wave back to us. And the thing is, they didn't even see us.
Is this kind of like where you think everybody in the room's talking about you?
Well, that could be paranoia, but,
It could.
but it's just, I assumed that they saw me and they chose not to wave. Therefore they hate me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and for a lot of us, that thought right there turns into, I can't believe, and you start create this scenario in your head and creates, anxiety and negative feelings and no one likes me and all these kind of things when actually they just never saw you to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that's that jumping to conclusions. As like I was saying, I talked to my guys and, plenty of times,
I was behind you at a red light last year in Bossier, and I'm sitting behind Jill, and I just text her. I'm sitting in my truck, and I'm like, get out of the way, I gotta go or something. Like an hour and a half goes by, and then Jill texts back, hey, where are you? I'm like, that was an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
But Jill doesn't mess with her phone when she's driving, so if you were thinking that way, you'd be like, well, Jill just doesn't even want to talk to me. She's sitting right here, but you never even knew I was,
Well, I've had one time I had to delete a Facebook because of some, people using it ways they shouldn't be. And so I deleted my whole Facebook. I haven't used it since, by the way. That was like 2018. And I had people that would see me when I would come back up here and accuse me of, unfriending them. I guess that's what it was called. And, just making assumptions based on whatever.
Exactly. But we've all done it, right? Mm-hmm. I've talked to, the guys, incarcerated, and they're just talking about, like, even when they're with their, their women and they're texting someone, who are you texting?
Yeah.
And then in their head, all of a sudden, they have a boyfriend, they have moved on, and then,
yep.
shit just kind of blows up from there. And then we could probably think of a million scenarios where we just kind of assume things and they're just not so.
Yeah.
Not so at all.
This can be dangerous to an addict.
This is horribly dangerous. I think for anybody.
Well, I mean, if we actually believe this stuff we're telling ourselves, it can cause a lot of.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about fear, anger, resentment, all the things we talk about, and not to mention depression, anxiety, all the things that, that everyday
Paranoia,
folks.
I mean, anything.
And 90% of it's not even legit. It's just made up in our head. So
and you're right. And when I look back at the way I used to think, this was 100% my thought patterns.
Yeah.
And no wonder I was never able to have desirable behaviors when everything I thought was a cognitive distortion.
Can you imagine doing a 4th step with all these cognitive distortions? And if you think about it, the big book talks about, we list things imagined
I mean, we kind of
and
do.
real.
Right.
I mean, so obviously they even had a little bit of knowledge of some folks got a little cognitive distortion.
Well, I mean, we
going on,
have to, because think about that. Our thoughts become our actions. So if they're negative and they're jacked up and all like that, we're going to have, negative consequences. And we don't come into AA, with, A++ in behavior.
Catastrophizing.
Catastrophizing.
Yeah, that too. That too.
Yeah, and so this is making a mountain out of a molehill, and a lot of people blow things so way out of proportion. That's just not even the case.
And I can see that. I'm going to jail. I'm going to go to jail.
Right.
And then you don't realize it unless it's murder. They're going to do everything they can to keep you out of jail.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to pay a lot of money or something, but
yeah,
but
catastrophizing.
I get it, man.
Is
I
a
get
big
it.
one. Kind of like a lot like that is magnification.
I'm really too pretty for prison. I've always thought, Anyway, sorry.
I know, Jill. Tell him, how's he rack up against some of the folks you work with?
I'm a cell block, 2 in jail too. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Jill.
So again, the exaggeration, the catastrophizing would also be a magnification, just making things way bigger than what they are. And so many people do this. I've seen it in relationships and just blow things way out of proportion. And it's just not something I'm not okay with, because that to me is drama and chaos right there. And actually all of them are if you think about it. But it's the drama and chaos that you cause on your own head.
Control fallacy. You heard of that one?
No, not as a cognitive distortion, but I believe it.
Believing that one is fully responsible for other people's actions or emotions. If only the world would do what I want them to.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a huge one.
That's not necessarily what that means, but I mean, I get it. You feel like you're responsible for what they did, especially when it comes to children.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. My son is 28. If he goes out and does something at this point, I'm not going to feel like it was my fault.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before. I lost a guy I was dating. He killed himself, and I blamed myself for a very long time for that. Now, did I have a little part in it? Yeah, I said something I wish I'd never said to him. Those were his last words. But ultimately, do I have control over that? Absolutely not. And I realized that. I mean, my counselor was like, "You are not God." I was like, damn, you're right.
And a lot of that stuff we do can have, we got to step back and realize we don't have that power.
Well,
we're not that powerful.
And the thing is, it was so it was so selfish of me to think that, because I internalized all of it. And when we internalize, it's like our self takes over and thinks we had more power than what we really had. Which is just another crock of bullshit.
That banana in your bag looks tough, Jill. Looks like it's been to prison and back.
It was given to me by my coworker to give to Chunk and Bud.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense now. So,
I would not eat
is that a banana in your bag, or are you just glad to see me? But that one's pretty rough.
It really isn't.
Some are,
Speaking of jail,
I've heard things.
Guys.
any rough bananas this week, Jill? Hey, you got one.
No, no. Again, like the big one of mine were the shouldas. The shouldas.
Shouldn't all over yourself, huh?
I didn't know, Mike.
What?
Should.
That's what I just said. Shouldn't all over yourself.
Oh, she's.
Having rigid beliefs about how things should be, often leading to guilt or self-criticism.
And this is just that control again. There were so many things in my life I thought should have been, and they just weren't. And boy, did that piss me off.
Yeah.
Because I've done it so many times.
Yeah, and it's just like, and then mine was like looking back and going, oh, I should have done this, and I knew the right thing to do. I didn't do it at the time, and then I would just beat myself up over.
Oh, absolutely.
Just it was like a game, you
Well,
know, like, hey, here's some more stuff you screwed up. You
yeah.
know?
And life didn't turn out the way I wanted to back then, and that shouldn't be like that. It should have been different, and I got to, learn and practice acceptance in a lot of this, because like it shouldn't have. Why did I think I was worthy of all these great things when I put zero into everything? And I'm also like highly intoxicated. Like I didn't deserve anything. I didn't do anything to get what I thought I should have. And I think that thought right there is the one that created the most anger within me, because I started seeing and comparing myself, which comparing is also...
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Can be another, cognitive distortion in the fact that I started getting mad at other people because they had what I wanted, and that wasn't fair. Mm-hmm. And I should have that. Why do they?
Don't show them your banana. They're going to be really jealous.
Yeah, that's also that. I think it's just like that mind game of we have to almost self-sabotage. It's almost like you know better. In the back of your mind, you're like, it's almost like that not just self, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like running yourself down,
Yeah.
Like I could always find something to be negative to look at myself.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, we get into these ways of thinking, and like we don't know how to get out of them, and we think it is what it is at that point, but it isn't what it is, because it's a complete
farce.
It is fabrication that we've made up in our mind that to us seems rational, but it absolutely isn't. But to me, like, I didn't understand why it wouldn't, since it constantly presented that way to me over and over and over and over again.
Well, I'm looking through this list, I have a lot of these.
Oh, we all do.
I might should not have Googled this.
Jill is crazy.
Well, no, I think you should, because like that's how you challenge them and get out of them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's it. What you're talking about is exactly when I went to treatment. My therapist, that was one of the first things she brought up was the extremes of always, never, blah, blah. I mean, that's one of the first things I remember going into treatment that them talking to us about. And we worked on that. And it started from the jump coming in there. Let's look at how we think. And then we had to give examples. If she heard me say always or never, she would say, well, give me examples of when it has happened, or,
She was challenging your thoughts.
Yeah. And I mean, it could even be, I'm out doing something, like we were at rec time or something, and somebody, anything like that. She was very good about, no, you're in the moment. Let's think about what you just said. And she did that with all of us. And that was really, really good. But that was the first example, was the always, never extreme.
And that's what I do with my clients. I call them out on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
No, it's just, I think it's important. I mean, because like that's what someone did for me, and I couldn't see it at that time because
there are 3 things on this list.
Yeah.
That just remind me so much of stuff that we hear in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
Mind reading.
Which is the fortune telling we just talked about.
Assuming you know what others are thinking without any evidence.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Polarized thinking. viewing things in an either or way without acknowledgement of any nuance or gray area.
Absolutely. Is that all or nothing?
And then blaming.
That's a big
Attributing
one.
negative
I was good at
outcomes to
that.
others without considering other factors.
Absolutely.
That is just,
Primarily, the other factor was myself and my actions.
And if you
When I
group
did
all these together, it kind of looks like marriage. But if you group them all together, it looks like
It's a cluster.
a lot of it has to do with, I mean, I don't know, it almost looks like narcissistic behavior in someone's part, right? If one person has all of these, I don't know, because I don't have all of them,
I think I've done all of them, at one point or another in my life.
But a lot of these do come out when you do the steps, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Sure. A lot of this, as a matter of fact, when I say the steps, I mean 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
even 8. 4, 5, 6, and 7. You do 4, 5, 6, and 7, and a lot of those things force you to look at you to the point of where best case scenario, worst case scenario, you come out of it not know who to blame. I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
Because at first you might have went in it playing the blame game or the no gray area. But if you listen to people share in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, a lot of them talk about that gray area that they didn't have before.
Absolutely. And if you really think about this and look at all the examples that we've gone over, is the fact they're all defects of character. We have been using them in a way that has not been healthy for us. It's totally, defective ways of thinking.
And
These are really good defects of character, by the way.
Yeah.
And
I'll
I'll
take
take
more
it.
examples. Call Jill at 189.
And two, one of the examples you gave about your guys calling home and nobody answering and they're upset and they start this whole thing. That's something I've ran into with sponsees, especially very early on. They're in a sober living house. Some of them in jail, whatever it might be, but they're separated and they've made this big mess and they get out of treatment and they're a week into a sober living house and they're freaking out. I'm getting texts because she didn't answer the phone at home. And I go, it's 6:00. You have 2 children. She's making supper for those kids, probably trying to give them a bath. She's worked all day. Calm down. And then an hour later,
He's the opposite of me. I'm like, man, dude, she's cheating on you, man. She's cheating.
Mike's
That's
like,
horrible.
cut your losses.
Her other man was waiting on you to get picked up.
Why do you
up by
think
the
she
van.
didn't answer the phone, bud?
Her other man was waiting
Well,
on you.
I mean,
bro. He's
they're
in there
just
with your kids right now.
not that uncommon.
She's using your money to buy him gifts.
Mike, you toughen your guys up is what you do. You just cut it.
I don't think I've ever had that particular situation come up, but
I've had that same mentality of like, we're going to have this big dramatic scenario. Plus the guy who's calling me is kicking himself like, I've failed. I've done all, because this person doesn't want, it's all these things hitting them. And I'm like, give it an hour, dude, or 2 hours.
Yeah,
and then they
pause.
call back and they're like, hey, literally, they're like, yeah, I was giving the kid a bath and then had to cook supper.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, everything's fine now. And I'm like, bro, that's what I'm talking about. But,
Yeah.
but it reminds me too, is like, we don't need to live in that world.
Well, yeah,
you know?
and it is rather dramatic. I mean, because, if you think about it, nobody loves me. People say
really
that.
not one person. Seriously.
Exactly. My mom, my dad, my sister. I mean, like I go on and on. All my friends.
And that
So one person you think don't love you, and the next thing you know, all people don't love you.
yeah.
No, I mean, I don't say that.
Not
but,
you,
oh,
Jill.
okay.
But that
I'm
way
talking
of
about
thinking.
cognitive distortion.
Yes.
All or nothing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm either.
The world
It's
hates me.
either nobody or everybody. Everybody's when you get mad, everybody's just
I've really, and I think that's
Whatever.
something that I don't know if it's what all it is, because I'm not, that I'm not I don't know what all the technical words for it are, but I've really gotten good about, or better at, not going to extremes with things. Like if someone is mad at me, that's okay. They might like me the next day, and you know what? I don't get too fired up when they like me either. I mean, I work real hard at staying in the middle, because I've learned that things change, and that took time being in here and having situations. And yeah, my brain can still, I can get a phone call or something and go, and mine start running. But a lot of times I stop, I think about it. I'll give myself a day, and I may not feel real great. I talk to a sponsor, and then he kind of mirrors what I was already thinking, which is 7 years along. It ought to be something like that. You know, it shouldn't be a foreign concept, but when I talk those things out and go, okay, it is what it is at the end of the day. And it doesn't make a person or a good or bad. It doesn't, all those things, when we learn to kind of stay in the middle, either way, man, that's a good place to be.
It is a good place, because I like to think these thoughts are impulsive, they're dramatic, they're exaggerated. I mean, they're just irrational.
Yeah.
And I feel like there does need to be a pause and some thoughts, following all of that.
I don't want to give away details of it, but I was at a place the other day, and there was a person that me and another person were talking to, and I introduced them to them, and then very funny, and we left, and everything was real nice. We're driving away, and the person was like, "What a nice person that was." I was like, "Yeah." I said, that guy one time picked up a push lawnmower and threw it at me. And she goes, "What?" And I was like, yeah. And she goes, "Really?" And I was like, "Oh, absolutely. This person was pissed off, and like tried to kill me with that lawnmower." And she's like, "What in the world?" I'm like, "Well, we're all right now." It doesn't, I just, it is what it is. So, yeah.
True crime
life
shows
is
will
wild.
often make you think like this too, though.
What?
Yeah, I watch a lot of true crime when in my spare time.
One thing that I've noticed is that, like I said, this is not something that's just selective for people like us. And
But it's
I'd like to
dangerous
say
for people like us.
they're very dangerous. Everybody does these.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. And you can think about blaming. That starts toddler age.
It's one thing I learned in AA. If I didn't learn anything else in my first 3 months of AA, is that blaming is horrible, and I don't allow it anywhere in my life.
No
Like
time.
I just can't do that. To me, it is the easiest solution to not do anything is when you have something to blame. And think about regular life, right? Let's just say right now I left here and I got in a wreck. Okay, not a bad one, just a wreck. And I call my mom, and I'd be like, "Mom, I just got in a wreck." Right? The first thing she's going to ask me is, "Are you okay?" Second thing she's going to ask me is, "Whose fault was it?" It doesn't matter. I got a dented up Ferrari on the side of the road. Who cares whose fault it is, right? But that's the second question we always ask.
Well, or we may, that guy, or I don't know.
I mean, I understand that point, the justice point, but, it doesn't take away any of it. The blame.
No.
The blame does not take away
The fact
whatever
that it
right
happened.
And I don't know if blame is the right word, but what is healthy is when I do have something to be able to stop and say, what was my part in it? It don't necessarily mean, like, here's a weird scenario. You go to the casino or something where it's got a parking garage. I don't know where else has one. You park, you're out in the middle of nowhere up on the 5th level, and you walk down and some dude robs you and takes your wallet, And yeah, that's not your fault. Somebody robbed you. It is what it is. But looking back, you could go, should I maybe park closer to the building? Could I have parked in a better area, not parked up,
Should have even gone to the casino in the first place.
Should I have gone to the casino? But
Well, see, I have this little thing in my underbreeches that has a
That
cup.
thing?
That's where I keep my wallet in there, and that way they had to take my whole pants off to get my wallet, bud. So
They
I'm
thought
gonna
it-
tell you right now, if they get it at that point, I wanted them
Thought
to
it
get
was-
it. You know what I mean?
thought it was a roll of quarters.
Yeah. No, a roll of ones, baby. A roll of ones down them britches. Unfortunately, I always accidentally put it in the back, didn't know it, So they had to review the cameras. Boom.
He's got to tell.
That's an old Boudreaux and Thibodeau joke right there.
Yeah, there was
Gotta
like
put it in the front.
There was a post of some folks the other day, and it was just a family posing with the Easter Bunny, and it was, and the Easter Bunny had a Easter boner, I mean, just like somebody put a nut bra on that thing, man. It was just
That's
boom
terrible.
right there.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I do watch a lot of, true crime, serial killer stuff, and that stuff doesn't creep me out. I'm gonna tell you what does the daggum Easter Bunny. For some reason, that thing creeps me out. I don't get creeped out by clowns. No other person like those type of characters. But the Easter Bunny's weird to me. He's got them big eyes, you know what I'm saying? And he don't blink. And that just, they always look creepy. I always see little kids with them pictures. I'm like, run. I'm thinking in my head, just get away.
You know what creeps me out? My grandma used to have this picture of Jesus hanging on the wall, and his eyes would follow you wherever you went.
Oh, that's, I don't.
And don't get me wrong, I love Jesus and all that, but man, when you're sitting there
I don't know
watching
if that
TV,
was Jesus, man.
11 o'clock, The Exorcist is on, and my eyes is looking at you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's just let you know that he is watching.
My brother,
Grandma used to have a lot of Jesus stuff all over the place, man.
my grandmother carried all of us to Easter Sunday when we were little. Big church she went to. She's proud, got all her grandbabies. We're like, 4 or 5 and 6 years old, that age, something like that. And we get up Easter morning and we got Easter stuff, right? And there's a huge chocolate bunny in the little box, And so I'm wanting to eat it. They won't let us do nothing until after church. Being the true outlaw me and my brothers were, I had my little clip-on tie with the white button-up shirt on, dressed for Sunday service. I slide this bunny into the shirt, button the shirt back up, put the tie over it, sneaking into the pew. So I'm sitting there. Yeah. I'm unbuttoning a couple of buttons. I just ease in, break a little piece of ear off or whatever, have me a little chocolate while service is going. Here's the problem. Body heat and chocolate and a white button-up shirt don't mix. And so when that thing started melting, man, I'll never forget my grandmother looked down there and it looked like a mud hole on the front of my shirt. And she realized you could see and she jerked me up out of that pew and down the aisle we went, But, yeah, poor grandma. Mama, I embarrassed her to death at church.
See, think about it, Matt. Me and you are grandparents.
Yeah.
If one of my grandkids did that, I just
It'd be
wouldn't
hilarious.
Give a damn.
It'd be,
I don't
I'd
care.
be proud of him,
You just lay your chocolate ass right there until the service is over. Give me a piece. Hand it here.
Look, Caden calls now and he's going to daycare. He calls it school, and he just started a couple weeks ago. So I call him the first day. I'm like, how was, me and Lacey call him. We're FaceTiming. I'm like, how was school? How was your first day of school? And he just looks over at me and he goes, I cried. Poor my mom.
Oh.
And so the first week, that's what he did. But I think he's got the hang of it. So he's enjoying it. He likes it. But that's a cool thing to do,
Well, circling back to
Yes.
cognitive distortions, the one that kept me sick and my addiction for the longest time was the thought of, I can't be helped.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to get better. You can't help me. And again, I know I'm not the only one that has said that. And I'm sure there's newcomers and people that are listening that have also thought that throughout their addiction. The thing is, I believe that 100% because I'd been to social workers and counselors and doctors and hospitals and treatment. I just been to all these places. And like I said, it's just one of those things I had to break it down. I went into Palmetto thinking the same thing. Y'all can't help me. People have tried, and I think it's just what I realized is that, again, I never tried. I never fully tried. And, that's what made the whole difference. And the place did work. Everything has worked. But it's because I did something. And I just want to, I wanted to say that to all the people out there that are listening that may feel hopeless in the fact that they can't do it either. Or maybe they're, getting into school and they feel they can't do it. Or that things are never going to happen the way you want them to happen. And it just wrapped up in all of this is you have the power to change your ways of thinking.
Sure.
It's challenging, and it's a skill, and it's something that you have to continue to do. Do I sometimes say cognitive distortions in my head? Absolutely.
I do, yeah. I will. I'll admit
Absolutely. And I think anybody would be lying if they said they didn't. It just, this, when I do them these days, I'm like, stop. I just tell that voice just to stop and just know that's not the truth of the matter. And it's just something you got to train yourself to do, because this is going to go against everything for a lot of people that what you think and what you've learned, maybe what your parents say, because your parents may have said stuff like, you're never going to amount to shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cognitive distortion right there. And that's one that's been imposed on you. And so you believed your whole life that you're a piece of shit and you're never going to deserve anything or get anything in life. And you believe it because that's what your mom and dad told you, or anything like that. And, our thoughts become our reality. And that's where we have to go, to our thoughts, if we want our reality changed. And it's as far as the cognitive distortions go, and it's important that we challenge them, because it can make or break us. And I used those for so long, and we haven't really mentioned this, as my excuse not to participate in life, or to be successful, or to be who I wanted to be, because I was so damn scared.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I would remember I labeled myself quite a bit. You don't understand, I have ADHD. I can't do well. I can't focus. I'm always distracted. I'm always this and that. I mean, how many cognitive distortions with that just in one little sentence? A lot of them. And I used them to my disadvantage. And, I hope that you guys understand that they were my crutch to get a free pass or just bullshit my way through life, when actually, it wasn't doing me any favors.
I get it. It was holding you back.
Well, yeah.
It almost like self-holding ourselves back,
Well, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We're screwing ourselves with these types of thinking, and it's up to us to change that.
Well,
You could do a 4 and 5 on just this thinking, couldn't you?
how to
Yeah.
overcome this cognitive distortions.
Absolutely.
Okay. Overcoming cognitive distortions or negative and inaccurate thought patterns involves becoming aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Step 6, 5, 6. Becoming aware of them, challenging their validity.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Is this true?
And replacing them with more balanced and realistic thinking.
Absolutely. So I am smart. With practice and with studying, I can
Yeah.
make good grades.
Yeah, I might not have the best GPA, but I may have to work at that.
Yeah.
And then I can. What I guess for me, what would be important is I can achieve it if I work for it.
Absolutely.
Not that because someone told me something my whole life, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
You know what a doctor is with a C average?
A doctor.
There you go.
Actually,
There
not
you go.
necessarily.
Well,
You don't get to make those grades when you get into higher education.
I do want to say this. You were talking about your GPA and those type things, and when I got out of school at LSU, and I wasn't a student there. Mm-hmm. I was there a lot though. Never attended any classes at all. I was in a lot of the dorms, a lot of keg parties, a lot of those things. But I left LSU. Mine was like a 2.8, but it was blood alcohol is what it was. It wasn't any grades
Well,
at all.
I had you beat there, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I tried my best, but
yeah. We were not allowed to make low grades in a master's program. So
yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. I was in the
I was in the subs program.
I was in the Suds, more like it, but I was in the Texas Club down there, whatever that was. So yeah, but
there is part of the big book that talks about being all or nothing, basically.
Yeah.
Apparently we've had this problem for the course of history.
right.
So it's not something that's new. So becoming aware is journaling, okay, is a suggestion. and mindfulness. Practice mindfulness techniques like deep breathing, meditation to become more aware of your thoughts and emotions without judgment. Okay. And then challenging the distorted thoughts is ask yourself if the distorted thought is supported by evidence. Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So it's an assumption until then.
Exactly.
Now, so let me go back to, my mom and dad quite regularly told me how lazy I was, right? And so if I want to go back and say, hey, is there any evidence of that? Yeah, there's a lot of it. A lot of evidence. I was lazy as hell, right? So what do I do then? I got the evidence.
I don't know what you did, but you're the most unlazy person I know. So whatever you did, it's
Yeah. Well, I was very much accused of being lazy. Actually, my tennis coach called me LL Cool J, which was Lazy Lamp Shark Cool Jill.
Well, that's very original.
I was never lazy. It was just
you should have a positive reaction just by getting your own label.
lazy
Even though they
wasn't
didn't
my
copy
problem. It
LL
was
Cool J.
it was the energy was spent on too many of the wrong activities, So
My energy, well, so 12, 13, 14, I was, I just can't stand mowing grass.
Yeah.
And
I can't either.
that's all that's there to do. And I mowed a lot of yards when I was a kid, but I just couldn't stand mowing my own because I wouldn't make any money on it or nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the old, we put the roof over your head. It's kind of crap you find telling people after
How
you
about
get
put
to
a
be
20 in my hand?
you get to be my age and you're like, hey, who pays for this electricity? You know?
Right.
Yeah, you go. I guess we all go through that. I will say this: I made sure that I never told my children that I thought they were lazy. Okay,
I think that's awesome.
I never told them that. I never made them feel less than. And I'm not saying my parents did. Right? They did tell me I was lazy, and to be quite honest with you, I was lazy.
Yeah.
I made good grades though. I was always, I made good grades effortlessly.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do all that.
I believe it.
You'd have these some of these kids that were, in the same classes or not social groups because they were in, they were other social groups, but they would be getting the same awards, going to the same contests, stuff like that, and they would be, oh, I get home and I have to start studying at 4:30 and I don't stop until 10 o'clock and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry.
Like, no thanks.
I'm just going to have to get an A. I don't know about y'all, but,
Well,
but when it comes to high school, though, I gave no effort.
yeah.
My first report card in high school was straight A's, something like that. My last report card was like 6 F's and a C.
Did you take typing your
5
freshman year?
I did.
I never took typing.
What? How did you get out of that? I thought everybody had to take typing.
I never took
And I'm talking
typing.
on a typewriter, guys.
So my typing teacher was like a female 60-year-old version of Shaq. And she wore high heels, yes. And she's about, she was really old. And she did
8
it
feet tall.
in rhythm. And you would go, T, and you would type T. And she'd go, Ira, and then you type R. I can hear it to this day, man. She was so funny though.
The funny thing about that is you look back on these teachers you had in high school and they seem so old, and most of them were in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah, and that's and yes.
Yeah, my favorite teacher of my whole 13 years, I think I was in the 3rd grade and maybe the 4th. And I'm looking back and she was in her 20s. And,
They just seem so old then.
They did. They seem so old. And,
And we're so way older
my
than that now.
son's almost 30, and like how these, I go out on the boat with the kid, my son, right? Or we're fishing and I know his personality. I don't understand how these teachers held it together at school around us. If they had his personality, because that's like, how do you do that?
I definitely could have.
Become aware of your own distortions, challenge your distortion, reframe and replace distorted thoughts.
Absolutely.
So that is replace shoulds with won'ts Instead of thinking I should or they should, consider what you or the other person actually wants or would like to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Those are all exactly what I tell people. And it's important. I mean, because it can change your life and the way you look at things. Not only that, your actions, the consequences of your actions, and all that.
And I say it all the time, but gratitude is the backup to all that stuff. When you're struggling, when I'm struggling, I go to gratitude real quick, and I go, okay, maybe this isn't going right. Maybe my thinking ain't right. But if I can sit down and write 10 things out, I start to go, okay, well, maybe all that's, it just eases all that a little bit. So
the most important thing, though, that I'm going to read out of everything I've read is seek support.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can identify, and why do we talk about this on the Grouch and the Brainstorm, a sobriety podcast? Because these. Speaking in my, I don't even know what
biblical.
You're fancy.
Read the 10 Commandments to us.
Yeah, I've been learning Hebrew on the
Thou.
side. This is a danger zone right
Sure,
here.
yeah.
And if you've worked the steps, or you're getting ready to work the steps, or you're especially coming down off of like a 6-week drunk and you're just now getting in the program, you're already depressed. I can't do it.
I'm a piece of shit.
I'm a piece of shit, and I've said that to myself.
No, for
you know.
sure.
I've said it, I don't know, not recently, not in the last couple months, but I've said it in sobriety.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are some of the things. Become aware of these. What is real and what is not. I go back to the doctor's opinion. We drink ourselves into living a false life anyway. So we can't distinguish the true from the false.
And what I think is important is that I couldn't see them. I couldn't see them at all. And I'd been through treatment and I'd been in recovery. But I had to seek outside help.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
No,
I don't
absolutely
think
nothing.
If somebody at AA tells you not to seek outside help, then they probably need to seek some outside help.
Yeah.
Because it says in our big book to make use of our medical doctors, make use of our priests and our rabbis.
Yeah, sure.
Or in any other leader of faith.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm not gonna. that's the only two that. pop
Whatever
into mind.
faith. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you got, what you got going. So you might have some kind of Charles Manson thing going, just some kind of something, right? So make use of the doctors, and Joe B says it best, and I've said it on the show a couple times. The way you feel today is not the way you're gonna feel forever.
Yep.
That's right.
And I tell myself that quite often, especially when I get a little red-assed. Calm down, dude. Is it really that big of a deal?
I like that T-shirt that says, "But did you die?" That's kind of what we've been talking. It's like, something bad happened. Did I die? No. Do I have a chance to correct it or work on it? Yes. So,
well, Jill, thank you for the topic.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
I do appreciate it.
I hope some people got, something out of it and is able to kind of turn their thoughts and their life around.
Yes, absolutely. If you didn't get anything, though, you got a little Journey playlist with some Steve Perry and a little Peter Cetera in Chicago. I mean, you got something.
Something, for sure,
right?
for sure.
So, we do appreciate the listeners. I'm gonna once again appeal. We need some more followers. We gained no followers this last week. We're still at 178. And just go and follow. If you don't listen to us but once or twice a year or whatever, or the holiday episode or whatever, do it. And then also remember, we're on Facebook. We also have a Facebook, and I would love to do a live stream. Obviously, once we get enough followers, we can do a live stream with one follower, I guess. But we like to have a little group of followers on Facebook. Grouch and Brainstorm. I think it's called G&B Podcast, is what it's called. So maybe I should have rephrased that. G&B Podcast. If you look that up on Facebook, I don't personally have a Facebook, but we do want to do, obviously we have that one, and we're going to live stream off of it as soon as we get some followers. And I think that would be really fun. Something to bump up the program a little bit, And of course, for that one, we'll do whatever. So, but I think that's all we got on cognitive distortion.
Oh, I could keep going.
I'm sure you could.
Jill can go to town with that. Miss B, my therapist, she could go to town with it. I was there for 90 days. I mean, she just, but it's right, man. It's changing. Like you gotta change the thoughts. And like you said earlier, if you're new in here, and you're thinking all these things. This thing ain't about drinking and using. It is initially, but then it becomes, how do I change my life?
Everything else.
Everything's got to be changed, or we go back to, that's the problem. I say it all the time. That's the problem with drugs and alcohol. They work.
It's living in balance.
If we don't have a different tool to make ourselves okay,
Yep.
So.
And we're chasing a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
We are chasing a feeling, if you ever think about that. Anything else y'all can think of?
Not today.
Well, still got the same amount of countries. Got 9,763 plays so far. So, what is today's date, guys?
The 24th of April?
The 24th of April. And if y'all think about this, we have about a week, maybe 2 weeks, and we have been sitting down together and recording podcasts for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
That is kind of crazy.
So we'll
2
have
years.
our 2-year anniversary coming up. So in 2 years, we did 111 episodes, or 100. It'll end up being like 114 episodes, 113. We missed 2. We just didn't record 2 times out of 2 years. We haven't recorded twice.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we record 2 episodes at a time so that we can, like Jill's going, on the Love Boat this weekend or whatever. And so we have to record 2 episodes at a time so that we can, do things on the weekend if we have to. But that is more than 1 episode a week if you think about it. It's 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah.
We're going to have 104 weeks in and 113 episodes. So I guess that back when we were doing the bonus episodes,
We were doing a lot.
We would release one where they would tell a story and one would have a topic.
Yeah.
So, and I think Savannah is actually going to post something on our Facebook page about you guys pick a topic, send it in,
Absolutely.
let us know. But also, people reach out to us on Spotify. That's what made me think about coming here. And we got new equipment, so I had to readjust the gain. And I have been watching the microphones the entire time, our voice levels on each one of us and where we hit. And guys, if you'll look at that, you'll see the yellow at the very top. So that means when you hit yellow, you're going into the danger zone. And I think what was wrong is me and Matt's mics were set to not record at a higher. Me and Matt's mics. That's a good one. We're set not record at the highest level that we could record at. So I think this is going to make a big difference. I hope.
Okay.
I'll find out when I get back to the
Me and Jill trust you.
the petting zoo. So, but anyway, guys, I guess that's all we got. Follow us. Email gnbbosier@gmail.com. I have the website still on my phone. I just hadn't got an email in a while. Pick a topic. Tell us what you want to hear about. If you want, we can still do calls. This thing does Bluetooth if you want to get on there and do it.
Okay.
So we've been in a very rainy Bossier City, Louisiana, and we've been at Rule 62 Studios. And as always, we are the Grouch and the Brainstorm.